everybody, to another episode of the Future of BizTech. I'm your host, JC Granger, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Gary Ross, who is the COO of Union. Gary, tell the audience a little bit about what is Union and who do they help in the market?
Yeah. So it's interesting. On its surface, Union is it's a point of sale and what we call guest-led ordering platform for high volume hospitality venues. So to say that more in English, we're a POS provider for bars and restaurants. But when you scratch a little bit below the surface, the reason we got into that game was one, to effectively create a data set of what, consumption behaviors and patterns and things that are happening in bars and restaurants, which no one had ever done before, and also to create marketing opportunities for brands that want to reach people in bars and restaurants. So we can get into all the details of that, but at a high level, just a POS for bars and restaurants. But when you dig deeper, there's a lot more.
Okay, so what really sets you guys apart, other than that, right? Because I'm getting that you are more on the data side, which I can imagine if you're able to train the hospitality market to properly use that data can be really good. In pre-show, you were telling me, you spent years in the hospitality market. I did as well early on in my 20s, right? Which is kind of the time to do it. If you're going to be on the ground level with the bars and nightclubs, things like that, that's a 20s man's game, right? Not
This
a
much gray hair.
30s
Yeah.
and 40s. You gotta move on, right? Unless you go corporate like you did or startup kind of thing, right? But how do you how do you pitch this to them when we both know that the demographic is a little more blue collar for the most part, right? That own these places. It sounds like you have a very tech centric side of it. How do you even sell the value of what you're doing, and then also what would it look like for them to utilize your software and service fully for their own advantage?
Yeah. So if you take a slight step back from the data piece I was talking about, and just think, what do we do for bars and restaurants? There's kind of two ways we pitch it and two key points. The first is we are purpose built for what we would call high volume hospitality venues, right? Big, busy bars and restaurants, which is a subset of a subset, right? The most POS systems are built for all the pizza shops, sandwich shops, coffee shops, and various other retail applications. And we purposely built for high volume bars and restaurants. They have a specific set of needs. Beyond that, when I mentioned guest led ordering, that is kind of the key way we help them do something different. And what that is, simply put, and again, we can talk a lot more about it, but this is while guests are out at a bar and restaurant using their phone to actually not only access the menu, but order and pay from their phone. That creates a whole bunch of opportunities for the bars. The most important of which is basically when you make it easier for people to order and easier for them to get their drinks and food, they order more. It drives more revenue for you. So when they adopt that, we see upwards of a 28% revenue increase for the bars.
That's awesome. Yeah, one of my favorite places, I'll even give a little shout out to them here in Denver is where I'm at. It's called Bar Taco, right? I love their tacos, their margs and whatnot, but they were one of the first ones I saw do this kind of style where they had little QR codes on the table. Right now, this is a little more common than not now, but this was like right post COVID, right? And what a lot of people did is they went back to their menus. What they did is they made a web app where you can order straight from your phone. You can even split the tab and you don't have to download anything in particular. And I did notice though that they would grab your mobile number. Now, to be fair, it was also a security check to make sure like, okay, this is you. Great. But obviously they can log this information and they can market to you. Now, to their credit, they don't spam me. I don't ever get texts from them to be honest, which I would allow them to send me one every now and then. But I think that's really cool because they are high volume in that sense. And is that kind of like what you're talking about where, do you guys have a system that's built in where it's QR code can be generated for your clients and then people can just order from their phone and because we didn't even have to talk to anyone. We just ordered and just showed up.
100%. So that is exactly what you're talking about. It's moving away from QRs as people seem to have a visceral reaction. I think it reminds them of COVID, but they're moving to NFC pucks. But you hit that puck, immediately you're in a live ordering menu. You do not need to download anything, but it does have app functionality, kind of like what you're talking about.
I like the
And
NFC idea. That's cool. Just your phone can tap the table now or
it's
whatever the thing is.
it's awesome. And when we first launched, 4.5 years ago, kind of your point during COVID, you had to download an app, and then you had to give it your name, your phone number, email, credit card, and you just want to order
Way
it.
too many steps.
Obviously, a
Way
lot
too
of
many
people
steps.
are like, now
Yeah.
you don't have to download the app. It works on an app clip. And if you have Apple Pay or Google Pay, we get everything we need to be able to charge you and everything from those guys. So that's all removed. But to your point, It is completely integrated. It's not a separate system. And this is actually, if you look at the history of Union, originally the idea was to be a separate system that sat on top of POSs. And in a variety of ways, we realized that couldn't not only capture the data we wanted, really couldn't affect the service model to the benefit of the bar and the guest the way we wanted. You talked about being able to split your check. You talked comp people, any of that stuff. If you have two separate systems, that gets really complicated. So
Yeah.
it's all integrated. So if you walk in the bar and hit that NFC, open your tab, every single terminal that a server can look at the bar immediately has your tab. Also pulls up all your drinking and eating history at that bar so they can come up and say, hey, I see you've been here a lot. You seem to really like whiskey cocktails. We got a brand new whiskey cocktail for you. It gives you sort of the treat everyone like a VIP option,
I was
which
gonna
is
say that would allow like a GM to literally see who a high spender is or a regular. I mean, you could even probably add like some sort of tagging system with parameters, I bet, right? Where it's like, hey, if someone spends more than $10,000, tag them with this and send the GM an email so they can reach out or they can see them next time.
yeah.
I don't know. Like it seems like you'd have to have
Come
something like
out,
that.
shake their hand, comp their drinks, right, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also, you can someone comes in and you can see it's their birthday. Hey, your celebrating birthday, it's great. It can be nice. Then you can record that in the system. They come in a year later. Hey, see your birthday's coming up in 2 months. You're coming back to spend it with us. Like the ability to personalize the service through this by
That's
recognizing
Vegas
the person is
style.
pretty
That
cool.
basically brings Vegas service to everywhere. It kind of because I mean when you go to Vegas, like they're the master of this. They have all this information. They know everything about every person coming in there, and they tailor the experience eloquently, right? Almost no matter where you go there. And this sounds like you're kind of almost bringing that personalization of high roller Vegas to a restaurant in Kansas if they want, right?
I think you just coined our new I got to call our CMO after this with, hey, bring Vegas, bring Vegas hospitality to your bar,
I
right?
spit gold all day, Gary. This that one was free. The next one's gonna cost both of you.
Fair enough.
Okay, so let's talk. Here's the thing. I love this system. I was in the hospitality industry in my 20s. And even when I go to places now, like you kind of almost have a little bit judgmental filter in your experience, right? Like for one, hospitality people are always really nice to other hospitality people, but also very critical of the system's processes and experience itself, right? So one thing I always, a couple things I hate. I'll go to a bar or a club or something, and you give them your credit card. And the first thing I ask them, like, do you give it back? Because the amount of people who have to panic because they left their card there, and I always thought that's not like it's got to be a choice because I know the technology exists to give it back. So I guess my question to you, just someone who, as a consumer, who gets frustration sometimes that half the bars keep my card and the other half give it back. What is preventing this to being like it just seems like such an easy upgrade. I'm even wondering why the POS systems that these other bars that keep it, how there's not just an update pushed out where they don't have to. I don't get it. Help me understand.
So, and I am not an expert bar operator, and we have a bunch of people who work here that are, but I will tell you from my understanding, it's actually not per the rules of EMV, like Visa, MasterCard, they're not allowed to keep that card. So if they're doing it, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing anymore. But I think it's
Oh,
a
I'm gonna
vestige
I'm
of,
gonna make I'm gonna say something now.
I mean, don't quote me because I'm not the lawyer, but so I think it's a vestige of old systems where they really had to for protect themselves from someone saying, "Hey, that wasn't me." But it's one of the many, and it's I'd say a more minor point, but one of the many benefits of using a system like this, as my partner and our co-founder, Alex always says, like, you know, every one of your guests has a POS system in their pocket. Why don't
Yeah.
you use that, right? Why are we handing credit cards back and forth to people? Why don't we
See,
just
that's your other tagline. A POS system in every pocket. See, there's two. That one, I'm billing you. That's it. Even though it was technically your idea.
Hey, you brought it out of me.
I did. Well, so the other problem that I always had too was that, and I'm hoping that I think what you said that your system solves this, is I'll be downstairs at a two-level or multi-level venue, and I get a drink or food, and then I want to walk upstairs. There's dancing. My other friends are up there, and I go to that bar, and they go, "Sorry, your tab's downstairs," and I'm like, "What? How do you like? You have computers that connect, right? Like I don't understand."
You put
And it's
man on the
just so
moon. Can you
yeah,
not? Yeah.
like are you two different bars? I don't understand. Like did I enter a portal and I'm now somewhere else? Like I just went upstairs, man. So I mean, what is with that? And then please tell me that I assume that yours fixes that option.
Yes. And that gets complicated around, cash drawers and checkouts and all this stuff. But like
Uh,
the point is, you open your phone on your tab, you sit at your table, your bar seat, you're ordering, they're bringing drinks to you. If you walk up to the bar on the way to the bathroom and say, "Hey, I've been sitting at table 15 ordering for my drinks on my phone, but like, can I just get a beer while I go to the bar?" You tell them your name. It's the same thing for them as if you had given them a credit card. They answer in your tab. You go upstairs. If you order, you say, "Hey," you give them your name. It doesn't matter that you were previously downstairs. Or if you sit at a new table and now you're at table 22, cool. When you order, you just change it to table 22 and now they know where you are anyway.
Yeah. I think Bar Taco's using you guys because they also like they'll have a server that says, "Hey, listen, you do everything yourself, but you can also wave me down." Like they're like, it's not a big deal, and you can close out on your phone, or you can just tell me. Like they have everything is so integrated and optional to just whatever makes you most comfortable, and I really love that experience with that. So I bet if I ask them, I know the GMs, I'm gonna have to ask them if they're using you
Yeah,
guys.
I
It sounds
luckily big
very
enough that
familiar.
I don't know all the bars at this point, but
Yeah, no.
I'm really happy to hear that you said that and that they're doing that because that's what we coach our bars. Because one of the common objections we'll hear from an owner when you first bring this up is, what if my guests don't want to use it? Like, well, one, we haven't found that guest yet, but two, no one's forcing them to. It's an option. Today, your bar's crowded. You have two options. You go up to the bar and you try to get the bartender's attention and get yelled at for going like this, or you sit where you are and wait for someone to find you, or you don't order. Now there's a
Mhm.
third option. You hit the NFC, you order, and you get it quickly. And when the bar is really slow, not that many people will do that. When the bar is packed, everyone's going to be trying to do that because they want to get a drink faster and you want to get their money faster.
Yeah.
So why not just let everyone be happy, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. When did you, because you told me in pre-show you're not a founder, so but tell me when you came to the company and what were some of those early struggles when you got in there, right? When you got your hands dirty and said, "Oh crap, here's what we're dealing with." Because I guarantee it wasn't like perfect, right? So what brought you to
Absolutely
the
perfect. Nothing went
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, everything's been fantastic, sir. So what brought you to the company? Like, what even made you look for that position, or were you recruited? And then, what were some of those early struggles in the beginning?
Yeah. So prior to this, I spent 13 years in the spirits industry. I worked for what was called Jim Beam Brands and then something
Yeah,
else, and then eventually became Suntory Global. It's the third biggest spirits company in the world. And kind of two things coming out of that. One, you spend a lot of time in any industry, you find consistent challenges. One of the consistent challenges in that industry is certain aspects of what we call the on-premise, right? The bars and restaurants, both on the data side and on the ability to, market to consumers and recruit new drinkers at that place. At the same time, I'd also spent most of my career at big companies like that. And so I kind of wanted to do something earlier stage and really see if I could help build something up. Um, and honestly, I stumbled into Union. My younger son went to preschool with the founder's kids, and we met one day and we started chatting. And I ended up, when I left there, I was looking for a new job, and I texted him because I was just I'd never done the big job search thing. I was just texting anyone I knew in Austin, "Hey, I'm
what you
relatively new
got?
in Austin. We want to stay here. Anyone got someone I should meet?" And he said, "What about me?" I said, "Don't you have some kind of tech company?" "I'm not a tech guy. I'm a spirits guy." He said, "Did I ever explain what the tech does?" And then, we went through a bunch of what we talked about and some more about and my jaw just kept getting lower. And so, yeah, then I signed on to try to help build up this side of the business, the sort of brand and data side, and it's been really interesting. And then in terms of struggles, there's a couple probably answers to that. One is I joined during COVID. If you think about what we do, COVID was, and I hate saying this because overall COVID was obviously not good news, but it was a blessing and a curse. The curse is anyone related to the hospitality industry was not, COVID was not all roses, right? You had a lot of bar
Yeah,
and restaurants closing. You
really
had
hard.
hard for people to make investment in new systems, and staff was very hard to come by. On the flip side, the idea of using your phone to order and pay overnight went from something, you put a QR code on a table a year before and people didn't know what it was. Now they immediately know what to do. So that was a huge benefit in pushing forward what we wanted to deliver. So it was a struggle, but and there was a lot of tough stuff to deal with related to it, but it had that silver lining for sure.
Awesome. Okay. Well, what about current struggles? Like, what are you guys dealing with right now that is either maybe overwhelming you guys or is a problem, either industry legislatively, because you do overlap in a highly regulated industry. What are you guys kind of tackling right now?
Yeah, I'd say honestly, one of the biggest struggles, and we're doing fine with it, but it's certainly a daily fight, is like I said, we hear from bar and restaurant owners, "Well, what if my guests don't like it?" It's a question we have answers for, but it's not a question I'm concerned with because we haven't really, like I said, found the guest who doesn't actually like it once they use it. But getting staff to realize that this is not just a tech change. This is a service model change enabled by tech. And to do what you're talking about at Bar Taco, it's not intuitive to a lot of staff. And so we have a lot of training, but they're skeptical at first sometimes, or they just, hey, I just do things the way I do it. And like you said, they're judgmental of the way people do other things. And so that's a constant effort to train. The beauty of it is once staff starts using it, not only do they like a lot of the aspects of it, but most importantly, they make more money because the bar is
Yeah.
making more money. They get more
Yeah.
money, plus it drives higher tip percentages. So like in the end, but that is like a daily, like every new bar is like, well, I know it's worked other places, but you don't know this bar, and that's the
Yeah.
classic, like, okay, cool, we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, people don't like change in general, right? Because it's the path of most resistance.
Yes.
But I do notice though, it's funny. I'll say I can literally see the anxiety levels that I typically see in servers are I'm not seeing at the staff there, and I think it's because I remember I was a server once, right? And I remember that anxiety of like, wait, did I like there's these timers. You got these timers for each table that you are responsible for in your head. And they're each are counting down at a different pace to when you think you need to check in on them. Right?
Yep.
Because you get a table that has fast drinkers. You're like, hey man, this is happy hour. They're coming from the office. These guys are putting it down. That timer's quicker. You gotta see them more often, right? Then you got the couple on a date, and you can tell it's their first date, and they don't want to talk to anyone because
Yep.
they're locked in. So that timer's slower, right? And so there's kind of like this just background hum, and I think that's why like I was always so exhausted after the shifts. It wasn't the walking around; I could do the physical part, but it was just that mental load of always trying to make sure people were happy and dealing with problems. And what I've noticed is that with this new model, it allows the tables who want that kind of attention to get it, and the ones who don't care to not have it. And that takes a massive load off of you. And honestly, I gotta tell you, it's better as a consumer experience. I think the thing that's really interesting about your technology is that it not only takes the stress and makes it more efficient for stress off of the staff and makes it more efficient, but it also allows that staff to pay more attention to the customers who want it. So you get customers who are high in attention needs who get it. And then ones who, and listen, there's people who they're like, hey man, I don't do people. I'm an introvert. I wish that I could have this whole experience and never have to talk to anyone. And guess what? They can absolutely do that. So I just see that it's such a great experience, user experience and business experience on both sides of the equation. So I struggle finding the flaw here at all, right? I love it.
I mean, what you're saying is spot on. I was thinking early days a cocktail bar in Austin, so near where I live, and so I was getting some feedback from them, and they said, "Well, hey, people come here to hear about our cool cocktails and talk to our staff about the cocktails. Is this going to get in the way of that?" And I said, well, "Look, you're right. You can go on Yelp and prove that you are. This isn't just you talking to yourself. Like they love your cocktails and they love talking to your staff about your cocktails. You know what they don't ever write in Yelp? Man, I love the way that guy swipes my credit card. Yeah, he wrote my order down and then he punched it into a machine like no one else. The other thing, if you go through the Yelp, right after talking about how great their people are, is yeah, the one problem is I had to wait 45 minutes to talk to someone. I couldn't find anyone. Hey, it was great talking about the first cocktail, but I just wanted to reorder the same exact cocktail and I couldn't do that. So to your point, it is like a choose your own adventure. Like it by nature allocates the hospitality. That's the other funny thing. The word is hospitality. And people think that means coming over with a piece of paper and saying, can I write down your order? That means hospitality. How was your day? What kind of food do you like? Let me recommend something. That's right. It allows the people who need that or want that to get it when they need it or want it. And the ones who don't either ever want it or just they wanted it for their first order and now they're on autopilot or they're watching the game and they just don't want anyone interrupting them. Cool. You use it how it works best for you. And it allocates that resource where it needs to be, which is cool. But explaining that to someone the first time is always a little,
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
your case, you've used it, which is awesome. It's always the best thing when people ask me that. I'm like, go to this, where do you live? Go to this bar. And then what?
Yep. Do you have like on your website, do you have like a find a bar near you that uses this tech? Because I think people could actually get so used to it that they actually may gravitate towards places that use it. Like, have you thought about that from a marketing standpoint of like these people use this so that you can have that same experience?
We have, and it's in the app itself. So like I mentioned, you don't need to download the app to use it, but you can download it. And for those who do, you can see all the bars near you and all sorts of information about them. And what's cool is, and we're doing some of this, and there's more to be done. Obviously, we can tell you all about the bar, which you can get from Google too. But we can have that opted in by the bar, tell you about yourself. But we could tell you, is the bar busy right now or not? You know,
Mm,
right?
okay.
We
Yeah,
you
that's true. You have all that data right there.
we
I'll
are the
know.
full POS system, right? We could, and we do this. We have a product called Waitlist. So obviously there's reservation platforms, but a lot of bars don't have reservations, but they do get crowded and you wait for a table, whatever. So you
Yeah,
can check to see, how busy the bar is and be like, cool, it's about 45 minutes for a table. I'll put my name on now and I'll get there in 30 minutes. If I miss my spot, I miss my spot, but you can do
sure.
that. So it's
So
like
is that a separate app, waitlist? Is that a separate like spin-off product, or is that
all part of
within the
the
Union app?
all part of the Union app.
Okay, very cool. Got it. All right. Well, here's the thing. I mean, everything about what you're saying is awesome. I personally use it, so I have a little more insight here on it. But I guess my question is like, how's business, so to speak? As in, you don't need to give me numbers. What I'm going for is, are you guys growing at a clip where it's just like you've got more demand than you even have staff to try to even get into these bars? Or do you find that this is a hard industry to really scale and explode in? Where do you guys land in that? And then explain a little.
Yeah. So it is more of the former. We are growing at a clip that it, if anything, outpaces ourselves on the onboarding side and on some of the support side. And the good news is we're prepared to staff up there, but it is a
Great.
constant chase, which is
Nice.
awesome. And just as more bars are hearing about us, we have a variety of kind of lead gen partners for ourselves on the bar and restaurant side with people that have much bigger teams than we are that are in bars and restaurants every day that make referrals to us, which is awesome. So I think it is definitely more of that. That being said, I mentioned early days of Union before it was even called Union. There was original ideas. Let's build an app that sits on top of any POS. So we don't need to be the POS, and we collect all the data we want, and we affect this ability to order and pay on your phone. The
Yeah, but you gotta get
challenge,
permission for that though from each POS corporate.
and it's impossible. None of the other systems try to collect data the way we were trying to collect it, which meant you were at the mercy of their data. But my point of all that is that the decision to be the POS system ultimately allows us to do everything we're trying to do. But it's harder to grow as the full-blown POS system than just some add-on you put on top of the system,
Sure.
obviously.
And this can be international, right? I don't see, I don't, there's no real limitations here, right? You can go around the
Yeah.
world with this.
There's obviously different rules and regs around payments and other places, so you have to go build your code around that. But that's
Yeah.
not complicated. You just have to go do it.
Okay. I mean, listen, you guys are growing at a clip, like you said. I usually ask what you're doing to get the word out there. It sounds like you don't even need to, but I am curious. What are you guys doing from the marketing point of view, other than podcasts, right? You said you have a CMO. Like, what is the company's strategy for? Even though you're growing fast, it's kind of like nobody ever wants to slow down, right? So, what are you guys doing to get the word out there so people even know about you guys?
Yeah. So, and actually, I'm realizing now we haven't even talked about this sort of what we do for brands side of the business, which
Oh,
I'd love to get into as well. And that trying to get the word out about that differently. But on the bar
sure.
and restaurant side, we do is not as much traditional lead gen marketing as it is referral partners. So a lot of the systems that we integrate with, right? If it's your payroll system or your accounting system and things like that, we work with those folks to bring each other leads. Um, I don't know how much you know about the payment processing industry, and I'm not an expert, but I know enough from being here. But there are a bunch of third-party payment processors that essentially, there are other POS companies in various verticals, including bar and restaurant. Once you work with them, you have to process your payments through them as well. Somebody like a Toast, that's how it works. Union works with third-party payment processors, and so those folks are out there trying to get payment processing business, and they have armies of both employees and contractors who are out talking to bars and restaurants, and they'll say, "Hey, Union's a great system. Have you talked to those guys?" And then we have some partnerships with some beverage distributors. Same thing. They got people every day in these places, and they'll say, "Oh, you seem like a good candidate for this tech. Would you be interested in talking to these guys?" So there's a lot of that word of mouth from people that know the industry and are trusted in the industry.
Yeah, so you got a lot of channel partners essentially in that sense.
That's
Yeah.
yes, that's
Okay.
more
Well, let's talk
succinct
about
way
the
to put
brand
it.
side. I don't want to ignore that, right? Because you did bring up that we didn't go over the brand side. Let's hear about that a little bit. But other than the hospitality.
Yeah, so the idea here is, and again, I could go on a 10-minute diatribe about the limitations of the on-premise for the beverage world, but basically, uh, if you want to even if you're not a beverage, if you want to market to people sitting in a bar and restaurant, which is incredibly important for the beverage industry, but also a very viable thing for a lot of other verticals, the tactics you have at your disposal are incredibly analog. They're indirect, they're expensive, they're unmeasurable. It's things like hiring someone to walk around a bar and hand out drinks, or throwing a party and inviting servers to a party and hoping that they take your message to their people. Um, they're expensive. I'd say that they're ineffective, but it can't be proven because they're unmeasurable. And so what we do is we allow brands to reach consumers while they're at a bar and restaurant, but to your point from before, in a way that is tailored to that person. So if you are if you are someone who's drank a bunch of whiskeys at all the bars we've seen you at, then you might see a suggestion from a whiskey brand.
Sure.
Um, if you are, if you're someone who's exhibited various behaviors, we can sort of, it's allowed to be feel more like a tailored recommendation, but you're basically, these brands can reach people. So there's different options for different brands, but you can reach people while they're looking at the menu and deciding what to order. You can reach people after they've ordered and after they've closed their tab. Um, to date, we've done a lot of this we worked with over 100 beverage companies. Then being from the beverage industry, that's how I ended up coming to the company, was to help do this. At the scale we've reached now, we're starting to talk to a lot of other verticals, a bunch of whom we thought made sense, like rideshare companies and dating apps and gaming companies and sports properties and people that would make sense to reach people sitting in a sports
Yeah.
bar. But there, I mean, we had a pet food company reach out the other day, which shocked me. But they said, "Hey, our core target, was these kind of folks." And I went, looked at, I just started Googling a bunch of our bars. The amount that show up on these pet friendly, there's a lot of bars say what bars are dog friendly.
Yeah.
So anyway, my point is there's a lot of people out there that want to reach, and I know I'm going on and on, but the key point is anything you've done ever, no matter what company you are, to reach people in bar and restaurant is very old school. Put money out there and hope it does something. And
Sure.
we are essentially bringing performance marketing where unless the person takes the action we're looking for, you don't have to pay us kind of marketing. And we can measure their future behaviors on the back end. Obviously, we don't trade in PII, so we're never going to say JC just went to this bar and tried this and then had that. But we can follow all the people who tried this tequila and see how many of them stick with it, and then have a cohort. Hey, do you know the people who stick with your tequila are the ones who tend to also drink beer? The ones who don't stick with your tequila are the ones who drink tequila and whiskey. Whatever the fact is, like we have those patterns, and it's really cool stuff.
That's awesome. Two-part question to kind of start wrapping up a little bit.
Yeah.
One is, where do you guys want to be in 12 months? Like what are your 12-month goals? And that can be answered anyway, whether it be revenue or amount of bars or new technology, I don't know. The second part of the question is, where do you see, like if you were to put on your Nostradamus hat and predict where the technology is going to take the hospitality industry or brands in the next like 5 years, which kind of sounds like dog years these days in AI, but where do you see, like, what do you see coming down the pike if you had to predict?
Yeah, so where we see ourselves in 12 months, in a whole bunch more bars and restaurants, we have regional strength, we call it the U, like on both coasts and in Texas. We got parts of the bunch of major metros and the rest of the country to fill in. And also, we see ourselves leaning more and more into the app, right? We see our bars, if we have a bar that's using it for half their transactions, we start to see it take up to 55% and things like that. So I'd say just continuing to do the same, but staying ahead of what's technologically possible. And this will get into kind of transition into your second question, which is, as an example, like I said, not every transaction at our bars goes through the app. Well, the industry has gotten enamored with every POS system has what we call a handheld, right? It's different, slightly different form, but like you walk up and I take your order and I've got a little machine in my hand, right? Ours is built into an iPhone. Try to get it as small and simple and intuitive for the servers as possible. What's really cool now, we're just launching literally like now, is essentially being able to tap to pay. So you don't need a card reader on that device anymore. So when you want to pay, you tap your credit card or even your phone on that phone, and that's it, you've paid. It's an alternative. You got the app, but you also have that. So one, I mean, it sounds simple, but if you're in the industry, you know it's not. Card readers are no bueno. Like they're just
Oh
not
man,
fun
they
to deal with
fail all the time,
all the
all the
time.
time.
They run out of power, they disconnect, they
And
have
they're
all sorts.
expensive, and then yeah, I mean it's hard.
And in a bar and restaurant, it's one thing at a retail store, in a bar and restaurant, they're getting beer spilled on them, they're getting dropped on the floor. Like, so we're going to move away from them. No more card readers. You have an iPhone. We put the software on there as a POS. So like there's cool stuff like that. And I think that's what's going to continue to evolve. Right now, the app does all the cool things it does, like waitlist, and you can look at my history of, you can get we've had consumers call it like your Spotify Wrapped of your going out because we can give you
Yeah.
your recaps and all. But there's all sorts of really cool stuff that you can build in for people and build in for the bars. And I guess you asked this question earlier. The bars, we leverage this data to give great consumer experiences and with our advertising partners. But there is so much opportunity for the bars to leverage the data to improve their own, business operations and service model. And if you think about, and I don't know if you've ever worked in I worked in spirits, it's sort of like consumer packaged goods. The amount of sort of category management information and data that's available when you go sell to your Safeway buyer or your Costco buyer. You walk into an independent bar and be like, I got all this data about how your pricing could be better and you're carrying the wrong thing. And they're like, dude, the dishwasher's broken. Will you please shut up?
Yeah.
But if we can use, our interface with these bars and certain parts of AI to help feed them their data back in a usable way to make recommendations for them that are simple and easy and actionable. We have the data. We just don't have the tech today to feed it back in a way that they're going to be able to use it as well as they could. And I see that's where this is going to be headed over the next bunch of years, which I think is going to be super cool. The other thing, and I know I'm going on, I wish I had my prop, as Alex always says, it's like ultimately when you look at Union, you're making a bet. I don't have my wallet, but he holds up his phone and his wallet. He's like, which of these do you think is going away first? And
Yeah.
like, that's really it. I think it's going to be more and more very normal for people to say, yeah, I use my phone. It's just easier. Why do I even have a credit card? Why am I walking around with a credit card? That's idiotic. Right. And so, anyway, I think there's a lot of cool stuff coming that is just going to keep leaning in that way. And, it's exciting to be on the cusp of that wave.
Well, listen, I'm rooting for you guys because, like I said, I come from the industry. I think what you're doing is awesome. What advice would you give to? I mean, I guess we can even make it more specific, like because hospitality is, I think, an industry that struggles with execution sometimes, right? And ideas. I don't think it is the most creative industry out there. It's just not, which is, I think, why when a company like yours comes out, it's very notable, right? Because you can really change the game quickly. So, what advice would you give, let's say, even to a struggling, bar or owner or someone who's even trying to come up with a good software or solution for the industry?
Yeah, I mean, if I were talking to a bar owner, and I say this all the time, a bar does well a lot because it's a cool place to hang out. And
Mhm.
everyone wants to talk about my amazing food and my amazing drinks and my amazing stuff. And those things are all important, but it's all of it. And you as the proprietor or the owner or the person who built the idea, your understanding of what the vision you want to deliver is absolutely paramount to your bar and to what you've been able to deliver. But don't mistake that for the fact that there's a whole bunch of data that from someone who's worked with thousands and thousands of bars can bring that if you take what they know about tens of thousands of bars and what you know about with the experience you're trying to cultivate and you put them together, it's really magical. There's a lot of folks out there that are just, it's my thing and no one else gets it and can even try. It's like, no, that don't just lean into the data. You got to do what makes your place special. So there is a sort of a combo element there. Um, and then as far as the industry goes, someone who was going to get into this, I mean, I don't know if I have great advice for that, but I will say for me, giving advice as a career kind of idea for someone getting in this industry or whatever is for me, the coolest part about this is I a lot of people get to take the function they've learned and bring it to a bunch of industries to keep it fresh throughout their career. And I've been able to take this industry that I didn't target, I just ended up in because they gave me a job coming out of grad school. Uh, and use that to go through. I've now have a career that spanned finance, marketing, sales, business development, and ops. And it's all been because I've known an industry. And so to me, that's been super cool. And so my advice would be to like, not that you have to seek that out, but don't be afraid of that. I don't want to be pegged as a Alc Bev guy or a hospitality guy per se, but it's actually been pretty fun to do. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I like interviewing people who have a passion for it and enjoy it, which I could tell before when we talked earlier. Um, where can people find you personally, Gary? Right, like if they heard something, who knows who's listening, right? They might have been like, "Hell yeah," and they want to reach out to you. And then where can people find the company itself if they want to research more about the product?
awesome. Yeah. So my name's Gary Ross again. I'm on LinkedIn under Gary Ross. I should see if that's actually, if my handle is different than that, but I believe it's just under Gary Ross. Uh, and you can email me at gary@getunion.com. And that's the other thing. If you want to go to the company, it's just getunion.com. As you and I were joking about before, Union's not the most distinctive name. So everything's Get Union, at least to give us something unique. And then the last thing is you don't need to download the app to use it at a bar, but you can download it if you're interested, even just in checking it out from more of a business standpoint, I would recommend downloading it. Just go to getunion.com/app because otherwise, if you go into the store and type in Union, you'll find us, but you'll find a bunch of other options too.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Well, listen, for everybody else who's listening to the show, Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Future of Biz Tech. And hey, if you like the episode, if you like Gary, whether you like me or not, I don't care. It's my show. I can do whatever I want. Give it a 5-star rating, share it, like it, because that is how tech nerds like us find cool podcasts like this. So, Gary, thank you so much again for being on the show. And I look forward to talking to you more about this product afterward.
Yeah, thank you, JC. This was awesome, man.
Have a good one.